cause. Johnny's in America. Johnny's in America. I'm a bit of America. I'm a bit of the world. I'm a bit, I can't help it. I'm a bit, I can't. I'm a bit of America. I'm a bit of the world. I'm a bit, I can't help it. I'm a bit, I can't. I'm a bit of America. God is in America. God is in America. I'm a bit of America. I'm a bit of the world. I'm a bit, I can't help it. I'm a bit, I can't. I'm a bit of America. I'm a bit of the world. I'm a bit, I can't help it. I'm a bit, I can't.
You have entered the Wolf's Den with Lone Wolf Poetics. Sit back and enjoy the unique perspective that is expressed through poetry, poems, prose, and short stories.
Hello and welcome to Inside the Wolf's Den on Cosmos Astrum Radio. My name is Lone Wolf Poetics. So like I said last week, this week I'm going to be focusing on pieces of mine that kind of deal with society in this crazy ass world we live in. So I actually have like 4 or 5 pieces I want to try and get through today. So with that said, I'm going to jump right into my first piece. So this piece is entitled Pledge of Allegiance, and no, it is not that Pledge of Allegiance. This is my Pledge of Allegiance. And it goes like this. Forget fame, rather have the indie scene where it can't be seen but still have the freedom to dream. So this shit'll never be released, just keeping it for me. No lyrics on a CD, top 40 will never hear from me. But maybe that's the way it's supposed to be, because I'd rather flaunt my individuality than have a red carpet kill my creativity. I got a voice with a message that needs to be heard, but my poetry don't need a beat to make you cry tears reading the words on a sheet. Sometimes I think the emotional connection is more complete when heard or read in silence, where your inner violence awakens from its sleep and is free to creep in the darkest corners you keep hidden out of sight and mind, that make you want to sodomize the world you leave behind. Lie out your teeth and turn the eye that's blind. Because this world has come so far, but like Kalani said on that track with Eminem, we're going nowhere fast. But I'd rather stand and fight with Stoneman Douglas than be the last MC at the party spitting garbage. At least I spark conversation and raise awareness through poetic lyrics full of substance. But this ain't meant to be an ego trip for me. I just wanted to take a little time out to clear the air and explain why you'll never hear these conscious... Could you clear the air and explain why you'll never hear these conscious rhymes? Could you clear the air and explain why you'll never hear these conscious rhymes? Because I don't need a record deal to say what's real, so call me a whistleblower. I will still be an injustice truth flower rhyme slayer screaming, forget fame, I'd rather have the indie scene where I can't be seen, but still have the freedom to dream. So this shit'll never be released, just keeping it for me. No lyrics on a CD, the top 40 will never hear from me, but Maybe that's the way it's supposed to be, because those who seek exposition of the truth never speak of adulation in the pursuit of rectification of corruption, but live in the shadows, screaming until their throats swell shut and they hear their messages echoing. It's a lifelong mission, with death beckoning to bring about moral reckoning. Living isolated and private, doubted and hated, taking chances just to get sideways glances, but forget it. Because that's the lady with whom I could share some dances with, and if that makes me a martyr, I'll just spit the truth harder and fight longer. No, I will never surrender or fall to silence until this world is rid of injustice and violence. For anyone who dares to recite this, with my hand on my heart, I swear this like the pledge of allegiance. Okay, so that was my piece entitled Pledge of Allegiance. So, this piece doesn't really have any actual inspiration behind it. If I remember correctly, I was just like relaxing in my room and not really doing anything, just kind of relaxing, and just had the ideas just kind of hit me in the face, basically. Yeah, so I originally wrote this to be kind of, I guess you could say, like freestyle rap lyrics, and I think that still, even though I recited it in very much a poetry form, I think that still definitely does come through. Yeah, it just it was really interesting writing this piece. I remember it only taking me like maybe 10 minutes at the most to write this piece, kind of like start to finish. So with a lot of my pieces, normally it takes me a little bit longer. And that's because I go through and I like to, so with me, I like to edit as I write. I don't write like a draft, go back, do an edit on it, and then write another draft or anything like that. I just like to write kind of one draft, and just kind of edit as I go. But this one, there wasn't really any editing that I did on it. It wasn't a lot of scratching out or kind of brainstorming lines, playing with lines or anything like that. It was literally just one take, kind of start to finish type thing, which is really, really rare for me, but I love when that happens. So even though I really actually love this piece, this piece is actually still one of my favorite pieces. This piece is also one of the most annoying pieces I have ever written. And I say that because, so even though this piece on its own feels very complete, it feels like it's done, it also, to me, kind of has a sense that it wants to be a little bit longer. It wants to be, or maybe not longer, but it wants to be part of something bigger, like a full verse. Okay, so this piece wants to be a verse in like a full-length song or something like that. So I keep kind of coming back to it and trying to, make it longer, make it part of something bigger. But every single time I do that, it completely fails. I have no idea why. So it's kind of one of the things, like, it wants to be part of something bigger, but at the same time, it actually doesn't want to be, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's really confusing and annoying for me, but I really love that piece nonetheless. That's pretty much all I have to say about that piece. Like I said, entitled Pledge of Allegiance. So before I get into my next piece, I actually have a quote for you guys. This quote comes from Ken Kesey, who said, and I quote, the job of the writer is to kiss no ass, no matter how big and holy and white and tempting and powerful, end quote. So, with that said, this next piece is entitled Censor This, and it goes like this. Yep, just another night sleeping underground while still alive, wondering how long I have before they find where I come to hide. Because their opinions and views I have defied, now I live confined to this damp, dark, claustrophobic hideaway. Because of freedom of speech, I am deemed the number one enemy of their so-called inclusive society. No, I ain't in Seattle, but I am sleepless tonight. Guess it's time to fight. So sleep to the sound of triggers going off while I raise hell and scream my voice throughout this land and across the seas. With me or against me, it's your choice. There is nowhere my words cannot reach, and my accuracy is never before been seen. I am practicing what you preach. This is clarity. This is poetry. This is living without being another brainwashed, carbon-copied relic of their disillusioned society. Though I fear not, nor resist change, I will not. For I am who I am, a poetic lone wolf howling at the moon of the society that should be. Filled not with scantily clad teenage girls demanding online cash to flash bodies they have yet to attain, where true heroes are disregarded and tossed aside for millionaire sluts and do-nothing bitches. There is no conceivable way you can morph, paint, or censor me into becoming a relic of your disillusioned society. I will forevermore speak for those who struggle to breathe, fight for what I believe in, and leave no leaf unturned. Which is why I may not conform, but neither will I perform in a circus act. I will not fade into the security of what you say I should be. There is no burden you can place upon me that will convince me to become a relic of your disillusioned society. Okay, so that was my piece entitled Censor This. So this piece is actually a combination or marriage of a couple of my older pieces, a couple older pieces of mine, those being entitled Relic of Society, which I wrote in September of 2016, and Sleep to the Sound, so Relic of Society, which I wrote in September of 2016, and Sleep to the Sound, that I wrote in June of 2016. So both of those original pieces are very short, and so both of those pieces are really short, and I kind of talked about this last week as well, kind of how I go about marrying older pieces of mine to like kind of together. So yeah, both these pieces, again, Relic of Society and Sleep to the Sound, are kind of short, are shorter pieces for me, but they have that same kind of grit, that same energy, that same kind of lone wolf mentality, that same kind of combative nature to them. So they work really well together. So both of those original poems are used in their entirety in Censor This. There might have been, I think there's a couple lines, maybe a couple a stanza or two here or there that I had to kind of manipulate and move around, but for the most part, both of those pieces are kind of one right after the other as well, which I think is really neat. So I wrote this piece as a sequel to my poem entitled Lone Wolf Poetics, Lone Wolf Poetics is that poem was actually the first time that I kind of came up with the concept of Lone Wolf Poetics. Kind of like, I guess you could say, like an alter ego. And that was kind of me introducing myself as Lone Wolf Poetics. So it's a very fluid poem. It's a very the fluidity comes from multiple very complex rhyme schemes. So I knew I wanted to write a sequel to it, but I was having a really hard time being able to write a sequel and kind of matching that style of writing that I used there, and the flow and the cadence and the message and the multiple complex rhyme schemes. So I just wasn't able to match it. So I kind of started thinking, well, what other ways could I write a sequel? Maybe not a part 1, part 2, but a sequel to that poem, Lone Wolf Poetics, where it's kind of talking about generally the same thing, like in a broad stroke, but maybe something more specific about my writing. So Censor This, unlike Lone Wolf Poetics, is more focused on my approach to writing about heavy, controversial, or unpopular topics, which is very much just like this poem is, very much in your face, raw, uncensored, and just point blank. Now I do obviously have a couple pieces where there's techniques and strategies that I use in those poems and prose where I'm able to kind of take off the edge a little bit, but for the most part, but even those pieces are still very, very even those pieces are very very aggressive and very in your face. So if you're hearing me stop talking at all during this, just so that you guys know, my dog is kind of freaking out and I'm not really sure why, so I'm just trying to listen if anything bad is going to happen. Okay, so it sounds like I'll be good now. So that's pretty much, okay, so getting back to Censor This, I love how aggressive and, like I said, how aggressive and combative this piece is, and just that overall kind of I don't give a damn mindset this piece has. That's pretty much everything I have to say about Censor This. So my next piece I have is actually a piece that I promised you guys last week. So this next piece is entitled No Power, No Fear, and it goes like this. No power, no fear, voices will never hear, no war, no terror, no skin color barrier. No more abuse, no pain, and no more suffering. Justice is never near. No time to waste, no accepting silence, no living in this darkness. No death, no tears, and no heartbreak. No tragedies, no disasters, no questions left unasked. No power, no fear, voices we'll never hear. No acting like we don't even care. P.S. Now go back and take out the word no, and you'll see the real meaning of the poem. Power, fear, voices we'll never hear. War, terror, skin color barrier. More abuse, pain, and more heartache. Okay, sorry. Sorry. So P.S. Now go back and take out the word no, and you'll see the real meaning of the poem. Power, fear, voices we'll never hear. War, terror, skin color barrier. More abuse, pain, and more suffering. Justice is never near. Time to waste, accepting silence, living in this darkness. Death, tears, and heartbreak. Tragedies, disasters, questions left unasked. Power, fear, voices we'll never hear. Acting like we no longer even care. Okay, so that was my piece entitled No Power, No Fear. So this piece was inspired by a poem I found in a poetry anthology I was published in way back in high school, so grade 12, so I'm looking at probably around 2010. So yeah, I had entered this random poetry contest. I don't know if it was me that found it or family member, someone found it for me, whatever. But this piece, yeah, okay, so I had entered my poem. Obviously I didn't win the competition, but my piece was selected to be included in a really beautiful anthology that I still have today. Really great poems in there. But anyways, yeah, so I don't know when the contest actually closed and when I found out, and when I finally got like the physical copy of the anthology. But obviously it was a good amount of time, a few months or whatever. So obviously when I first got the actual physical anthology, obviously I read it like front to back a couple times, and I've still done that, and I still go back and read it, just for inspiration and just ideas and that kind of thing. But okay, so anyways, yeah, so when I was reading through this anthology, I think it was on the next page. So my poem was on one page, and I think not the back side of the page that my poem was on, but the next kind of face page, was this poem, and it just stuck out of all the poetry in that anthology. And it's got to be around 100 pages of poems. But okay, so out of all of those, this one poem really, really stuck out to me, and it still sticks out to me because it was the first time I had ever seen this concept of a two-way poem actually written, and it just amazed me how. Okay, so I kind of talked about this last week as well. I was just kind of floored how brilliant it was, and how well put together and how well it worked. So like I said, that was probably 2011, I think, is actually when I got the actual anthology. And then I didn't write No Power, No Fear, which is my first attempt at writing this two-way poem, until 2016, 2017, around there. So obviously a big gap. And then, like I said last week, it was just because I just had no idea how to even go about it. But yeah, like I said, No Power, No Fear was my first attempt at it. So obviously this is a very simplistic poem, but I think that's actually what makes it work really well. Like I said last week, with two-way poems, this style of poetry, I don't think you can get overly complex. I just don't think it would work. It'd be too mushy, and it would be, I think, impossible to get it to work both ways cohesively. But yeah, I think the impact of this poem is that it is very simplistic and very emotional, and two very polar opposite of emotional, right? You get the right, so you get the hopeful, you get the kind of, you get the hopeful sense when you read it through like the very first time, and then when you go back, it's a very angry, aggressive, frustrated emotion that you get the second time. But okay, so with that said, that pretty much wraps up everything I have to say about No Power, No Fear. So actually, before I get into my next piece here, I have another quote for you guys. So I have another quote for you guys. This one comes from Elie Wiesel. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. I think it's Weasel. It's spelled like Weasel. So I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so again, this quote comes from Elie Wiesel, who said, and I quote, "We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." End quote. So with that said, this next piece is entitled Sound Off, and it goes like this. Sound off, start a convoy just to annoy, break the chain of supply just because you won't comply, screw if people die. Desecrate monuments of value, disgrace those who died for you, distract from your agenda with vaccine propaganda. Write and provide a platform for zombies to perform, act as though that's the norm. A swarm of Nazis hath invaded this country, and I can't help feeling wary when they are not the adversary. Sound off. Perpetually pandering, proper precise communication to brainwash a nation. A fail clever disguise to hide your radical eyes, but I see truth through lies. I tried to stay basic to see your bases, but it was so skin deep that I barely heard a peep. I'm impervious to being zombified by a glorified hate monger. No longer will I stand aside, steadfast in my stance held fast, putting you on blast. I will not relive the past. Let me be crystal clear. I need you to hear when I sound off. In an inclusive space, or with free speech, or so you say. On a platform of discussion, I simply asked a question. But you missed the point. Now you're acting the fool like you skipped school. I called out your bluff. Guess your feelings ain't tough. So you decide to toss out labels, but views you choose ain't able to turn tables. Compare me to terror, but I am no worse for wear. I have no fear, it is my voice you will hear when I sound off. Though I am stationary, my words are weaponry, wielded with exemplary skill to expose your discrepancy at will. Racism is my battle, you thought you could rattle. But I will not stop, I just set up a new shop. But cancel me anyway and find out the hard way. This lone wolf won't fade away. I just sound off ever more loudly. Okay, so that was my piece entitled Sound Off. So this piece was inspired by protests that were taking place this past winter, as well as fights I was unfortunately involved in on social media. So to me, this piece, so this piece is very much a piece where I wrote it as a way to vent anger, frustration, being upset, just kind of a bunch of emotions actually. And I guess you could kind of say that as well for Censor This, but definitely Sound Off is a lot more so. Okay, so I love the way this piece has a sense of almost anarchy and almost a sense of like being a rally, like a chant you would say at a rally, like the sound off to it. And again, just kind of that has kind of been a theme tonight, but again, just that sense of going against the system kind of thing, I guess you could say. But I think that kind of added to that mindset, that aggressiveness, I guess, works really, really well for this piece. It's actually, again, I say this about almost all my pieces, but this really is one of my favorite pieces. So style-wise, I would say this is very much true to how I am writing at the moment. And I say that because even though this piece has a fairly simple rhyme scheme to it, to me, okay, so at least to me, it has a sense that it's almost hinting that it can be really, that it could go really complex, and the kind of multiple really complex rhyme schemes that I was talking about earlier that I used in a poem like Lone Wolf Poetics. But this piece doesn't have that, but like I said, I think it kind of just a little bit hints at it, that it could be. And that's, like I said, very true to how I'm writing right now, especially with my poetry. But that's pretty much, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. And I am really, really ahead of where I thought it would be. So so to kind of go behind the scenes a bit. So I did a run through of my whole broadcast yesterday. And I was at this point I was at about half an hour or so. So I added in a couple, both the quotes, and I also added in the Pledge of Allegiance piece that I started off with tonight. And I kind of thought, because that Pledge of Allegiance is a little bit longer, I thought I'd be a lot farther ahead than I am right now. And I say that because I only have one more piece for you guys, so it's gonna be another, short night, which is all right. But this next piece is entitled Sound Off for Ukraine. And this one's a little bit different because so even though I'm not actually going to be able to hear you guys, I actually do need your help with this one. A little bit different style for me. So helping out is really easy. All you got to do is clap your hands in the kind of, we all know that hockey sports kind of chant, right? The one that goes, yeah, so that's all I need you guys to do. So with that said, we're going to start off clapping, and so with that said, this is my piece entitled Sound Off for Ukraine, and it goes like this. We're going to start off clapping. Sound off. We want Ukraine free. We want Ukraine free. We want Ukraine free. Sound off. Start a war just for fun. What have you done? Bullet, bomb, and gun, spreading fear and terror without a goddamn care. Where was the cause for concern? There is no reason to discern where Ukraine hath earned, hearing sirens warn of peace and safety turn to bloodshed and agony. The only reason for this lunacy is your bloodthirsty tyranny. Sound off. We want Ukraine free. We want Ukraine free. We want Ukraine free. Did you even ponder whether your own soldiers wanted to wear your lies? Can you even look them in the eyes? Or is your disguise your tyranny? Try any solution before destruction. This bullshit insurgents, we will not take this in silence, nor stand for your psychosis. What is this but absolute power, corrupting power absolute? Right arms raised, not in a salute. On this we stand firm and proud, screaming loud for Ukraine. We sound off. We want Ukraine free. We want Ukraine free. We want Ukraine free. I will not beg and plead down on my knees. No more war, please. I will scream it from the tops of trees until Ukraine is left in peace to rebuild piece by piece. In stereo, united. Let us sound off for Ukraine. We want Ukraine free. 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 Okay, so that was my piece entitled Sound Off for Ukraine. So this is another piece where I think the inspiration is pretty obvious. But I guess if I had to give a specific example of what my inspiration was to write this piece, it would be the song entitled Home Back by Ukrainian metal band Ginger. So with Ginger, I was actually supposed to see Ginger live at the Knotfest Roadshow, what was that, a month or two ago. But obviously with them being Ukrainian and living in Kiev, and with what's going on in Ukraine, obviously through no fault of their own, they weren't able to make it. But yeah, so Home Back is kind of they wrote that song, I believe 2019, maybe 2018, around there. So with that, the reason I bring that up is to say that Ginger, obviously, so Ukraine as a whole, but Ginger specifically has been very much intertwined with war. Even their song that got, even the song that got them signed to Napalm Records, which I believe is one of the biggest metal music labels in the world. Happened after their home in which they had fled got bombed. So just their whole career has been intertwined with war. And so their song Home Back, again, like I said, it came out in like 2018, 2019. It's kind of the one time they've talked about it. Not that instance, obviously, but just kind of war in general. And it's actually one of my favorite songs by Ginger. So I would guess that song would be the inspiration, what inspired me to write my piece, Sound Off for Ukraine. So with everything going on over in the Ukraine, obviously, I knew I had to write something. And so when I finally kind of sat down to write about what's going on, and it's still going on, unfortunately, in the Ukraine, I kind of had this idea that the attitude and the kind of aggressiveness and the kind of, I was talking about with that kind of rally chant, would work really, really well for this piece, for a piece about Ukraine, because I wanted to, and the reason and this is why I actually added in the cheering, was because I wanted to create a sense of unity. I wanted this piece to almost have a sense of being anthemic, as being an anthem. I always kind of picture this as, a piece that where maybe one person will be listening to it and kind of going along with it and doing the clapping and that, and then it just kind of snowballing into that kind of flash mob type scenario, where you start with maybe 4 or 5 people, but because the moves are very simplistic and very repetitive, usually you can end up with hundreds and thousands of people that just kind of join in, and it's this crazy sense of unity and community and passion and support. So that's kind of what I was thinking with adding in the clapping. So yeah, this is another piece. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have to say about that. So if you're wanting to see visuals, how I kind of interpret these pieces visually, Censor This, No Power, No Fear, Sound Off, as well as Sound Off for Ukraine, all have videos on my YouTube channel you can check out. Just go on and type in like Lone Wolf Poetics and it will come up. I think I'm around 70-ish videos now, maybe around there, 65, 70. But yeah, so like I said, the only piece from tonight that does not have a video currently is Pledge of Allegiance. And that's mainly just because that piece is so annoying. But anyways, yeah, so that's pretty much, so that's all the poetry I have for you guys tonight. So just looking ahead on what's coming up on Cosmos Astrum Radio. So you keep it tuned right here because in about 26-ish minutes. So in about 26-ish minutes, we have the Boreal Ghost Show. Amazing mix of music and as well as stories. You could get something from like traditional folk music, you get traditional like world music, throat singing, that kind of thing. A lot of bands from Iceland, which are really, really cool. You might get some metal, you might get some bluegrass, all in one episode. And as well, you also get kind of personal stories from Boreal Ghost. And I'm told, I have it on good authority, that the actual Boreal Ghost is going to be turning up on air tonight. So I'm really looking forward to that. Like I said, that kicks off right here on Cosmos Astrum Radio in about 25 minutes, about 25 minutes, beginning at 9 o'clock p.m. Right here on right here on Cosmos Astrum Radio. Following that, we go to Friday. We have the Thunder Cave show with Joe. Not sure what he's going to be doing. He could play some vinyl live on the air. You could play tape cassettes live on the air. You might get some rap, you might get some country, you might get some metal. That's all in 1 hour. So great show. Like I said, great show. Like I said, that's the Thunder Cave show with Joe, right here on Cosmos Astrum Radio tomorrow night from 10 to 11 p.m. And if you're able to stay awake, tune in to Loki's Laughs. That's going to be Saturday morning, beginning at 1 a.m. going till about 2 a.m. maybe 2:30 a.m. somewhere around there. So the next So the next Wolf's Den. So the next time we're inside the Wolf's Den, which will be next Thursday right here, same time, 7 o'clock p.m. Saskatchewan time. So the next Thursday's theme is gonna be Tech is Poison. It's gonna be a broadcast I'm really looking forward to. I really love doing these pieces for people. I'm really looking forward to that next week right here inside the Wolf's Den on Cosmos Astrum Radio. So as for myself, Lone Wolf Poetics, I have a new video coming out on my YouTube channel tomorrow, 12 o'clock noon Saskatchewan time, and the piece for that is entitled, My Fire Burns the Clown. It's a very different, this is my rap video, so really looking forward to it. Like I said, that's going to come out on my YouTube channel, Lone Wolf Poetics, tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon. But yeah, actually all I have for you guys tonight. So with that, I will sign off and say there's no right